All right, so tonight we're talking about David. We're following David's life in the series called Shaping Destiny. First three parts were about destiny rising, him on the rise to getting towards his destiny. And tonight we're going to start the next three-part series following David, because his life is just so big. We had to break it up, and I had Sally come in between. But tonight we're talking about Destiny's Desert. And what we had here is the shepherd boy David. He gets seen, by Samuel, who anoints him a king. As he's just a shepherd, he goes from rags to riches. He's a man of character and courage. He takes the lion by the beard. Remember that? And he punches it in the face, and it takes out the bear, and he takes out the Philistine. He risks his own life even after he's been anointed king. Think about that. I mean, you see a president surrounded by a secret service. You don't see him going out and fighting the Taliban, do you? No. But he's already been anointed king. He's like, no, I'm not going to stand for this. And he goes up against the Philistine, and he takes him down, goes from rags to riches. Everything's looking up for David. He's on his way to his destiny, and he is. But before he can get there, he's got to go through a desert. Say, uh-oh. Oh, snap. It's about to get intense. I want you, if you have a Bible, or if you can look up on the screen, or you can look at the Bible that's underneath your chair and turn to 1 Samuel chapter 18. Now, I want you to know about those Bibles. Those Bibles have been donated by Lifeway Christian Bookstore. And if you do not have a Bible, or if yours is all busted up, you need a Bible, you just take that one home with you. And we'll take up the rest of them, and we'll put them out next week. We have enough to go around, so we want everybody equipped with a Bible. And I'm not just talking about one that's on your iPad, or your phone. I want you to be able to flip through that thing. We're going to do Bible drills. I'm going to see if everybody knows where stuff's at. You know what I mean? So get your Bible, get up in there. 1 Samuel to the Old Testament, chapter 18. All right. Verse 6. Now it happened. Somebody say amen when you're there. Now it happened as they were coming home. This is right after he cuts off Goliath's head, and he's holding his big old head, and he's walking home. It says, now it happened as they were coming home, chapter 18, verse 6, when David was returning from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women came out of the cities of Israel singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines and joy and musical instruments. And so the women sang as they danced, and they said this, and Saul's expecting something awesome, like, yeah, they're going to think I'm awesome. And they said, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. Now, that didn't make Saul very happy. He's like, cracker, please. I'm the king. Why you, this is, what the, verse 9. So Saul eyed David. What did that look like? Zion, come on. The whole sermon, I'm going to eye you. Look at you. It makes you feel weird, doesn't it? Said that he eyed him from that day forward. Verse 10, and it happened on the next day that the distressing spirit from God came upon Saul, which is very interesting. We don't got time to go into what that's all about. So David played music with his hand just like he did at other times. But, somebody say but, there was a spear in Saul's hand this time. And Saul cast the spear, for he said, I'm going to pin David to the wall. But David escaped his presence twice. Now, David, if you had to escape one time, I don't know, you escape twice, like he throws a spear at you, and you're like, okay, and you escape once, you come back, all right, is everything better? He throws another spear, okay, I'm done. You know what I mean? Fool me once, fool me twice. Verse 12. Now Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him, but he had left Saul. And Saul was still more afraid of David. He was even more afraid now that all these things happened that I don't have time to go into. So Saul became David's enemy continually. So David leaves his royal palace, and he flees into the desert as a fugitive. Chapter 21. He goes to this town called Nob. Someone say Nob. How would you like to live there? Where are you from? I'm Nob. He's from Nob, and he finds the priest there. And the head priest is named Ahimelech. And he's like, why are you here alone? Like, what's going on here? Something's, Ahimelech's like, something's not right about this. He doesn't know that David's a fugitive. Okay? So he's like, why are you here by yourself? And David, he says, I'm on a secret mission. And he says that, can I have some bread and a sword? Because I don't have a sword. And they give him holy bread and a sword. But 1 Samuel 21, verse 7 says, a certain man of servants of David was there in that day, and his name was Doeg. I'm going to say Doeg. Doeg is a dog, man. Doeg's not a good guy. We're not going to like Doeg. You're going to hate Doeg, I think. Somebody say Doeg. I want you to raise your fist and be like, Doeg. I want you to think about your like childhood arch nemesis. Did you have one? I did. He was a ginger, and he lived across the alley from me. Yes, he lived across the alley from me. And one time I'm going to take out the trash, and this ragtag group of little kids surround me. I was a little kid at the time, not my size now. And I'm throwing away the trash, and they all have sticks, and they're pointing it at me. And here is my arch nemesis, Cody. Doeg. Somebody say Doeg. And Doeg proceeds to punch me in the nose and run away. And just run away. And I'm bleeding. And I'm like, wait, I didn't even have a chance to fight you, you jerk. You know what I mean? And everyone's like, haha, you lost. I'm like, no, he ran away. Doeg. Come on. Does somebody have a Doeg in your life? That person? Oh, Doeg. I freaking hate Doeg. But we're going to talk about him. I want you to remember Doeg, because Doeg's going to come back up. He's a Doeg, man. So when somebody's like a Doeg, say, man, that guy is a Doeg. Yeah, it sounds familiar. All right, verse 9. So Doeg, one of Saul's guys, is there. David's lying. He's running from Saul because Saul's trying to kill him. And so David goes to the city of Nob. He tries to find some help, right? And the priest is like, wait, why are you here alone? Usually king's people come with an entourage. He's like, I'm in a hurry. And so they go ahead and they give him the stuff that he needs. But Doeg, one of Saul's guys, hears about it. And so he's in the background while Ahimelech, the priest, is talking to David. And this is what he says. And the priest said, the sword of Goliath the Philistine, who you killed in the valley of Elah, there it is, wrapped in a cloth. And David said, there is nothing like it. Give it to me. I mean, this is the moment of, like, where Aragorn gets Narsil, you know what I mean? It's like the sword, you know, I mean, it's like freaking Goliath's sword, you know, it's like a big sword. He's like, he got it. Yeah, I don't know. I just think this is a cool moment. He gets back together with the sword that he cut Goliath's head off with. He's like, give it to me. There's nothing like it. Verse 10. Okay, so then he leaves Nob. Then David arose and he fled that day from before Saul, and he went to Achish, the king of Gath. Now you might not know what that is, but remember that's where Goliath is from. Goliath is from Gath. Gath is the place that like collects giants. You know, like that football team that you used to play against, where you look across the field and you're like, oh my gosh, what is this, Gath? Are we playing Gath? All those 7th graders look so much bigger than me. And now remember that Gath is the great city of the Philistines. It's the opposite of Jerusalem. It's like that old cartoon He-Man. Does anybody know He-Man? Yes, yes. We got a few of you. Okay, so if Jerusalem was the castle of Grayskull, then Gath would have been Snake Mountain, where Skeletor is from. You don't know what that means. Okay, let's put it another way. How about Power Rangers? Dumb. So dumb. All right, okay, so I'm just going to put it in your terms, okay? If the power chamber, okay, was like Jerusalem, then Lord Zed's city, the Moon Palace, that would be like Gath, okay? So I want you to imagine this for a second. Here is this guy that's anointed to be king of Israel, the people of God. And let's just say that Gath is like the city where the people of the devil are, okay? We'll just say that. This would be like the Red Ranger walking into Moon Palace and saying, hey, Zed, I've killed all your greatest warriors. Didn't kill them, I zorked them. Can I come work for you now? You know? He's like, no, come into my little prison. Oh. It would be like Hitler walking into the White House and be like, hey, FDR, you know, I want to be your new general. What do you say? You know, it's like, no, you're going to die. All right? So that's the gravity of what's going on here. David just walked into Gath. What? I said David just walked into Gath. You said, what? Gath. You got no business in Gath. And servants of Achish, the king of Gath, said to him, is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing of him to one another in the dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000? And this is what the next verse, I crack up at this next verse. Now, David took these words to heart. Okay. They recognize me. Don't pay attention to the guy behind the curtain. Hey, is that Goliath's sword behind you? Like, what sword? What are you talking about? This was not a very smart move on David's behalf. This is not a good move. Because David just killed their greatest warrior, and now he comes in with his sword. Hey, you got a job for me? You know, and they're like, no, you're going to die, David. And so, this is my favorite story about David. David is straight up crazy. Somebody say, he's crazy. Oh, he's a great guy. I wish. So he changed his behavior before them. He was normal. He's like, hey, can I have a job? And they're like, hey, are you this guy that Saul killed 1,000, David killed 10? This is the guy who killed Goliath. Changed his behavior. He pretended madness in their hands. And he scratched on the doors of the gate. And he let saliva fall down on his beard. All right, I'm leaving. All right, and he takes off. This is one of my favorite stories because David's straight up crazy. He's scratching at the doors. He's scratching at them. He's slaving. I got myself tonight. And Achish says to his servants, look, you see this man is insane. Why did you even bring this guy to me? Have I need of a madman that you brought this fellow to play madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? Get out of here. Get this guy out of here. He's like, thank you, Jesus. And he walks away. Not a good choice going to Gath. No, that's not a good idea. Not if you're David, killer of Philistines. No, not a good idea at all. And so he escapes to a cave from there. And things just seem to keep getting worse for David. From minding his own business, he's just guarding his sheep, worshiping God, writing psalms, being cool, to being anointed king of the people. That's great. To killing a great Philistine warrior. Now he's awesome. But then everything started looking down. Then the king gets jealous. He starts trying to kill me. And everyone, even my enemies won't let me work for them. Even my mama thinks my mind is gone. You don't know what that is. I bet you know what that is, don't you? Even my mama thinks my mind is gone. It's a rap song. Gangster's Paradise. Gangster's Paradise. No, that's not the song. No, that's not the song. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear for my life. I realize that God's with his rod and staff been with me so long, been keep me from all the places that might go wrong. Well, he's a shepherd on the lamb, and dinner he serves me. Makes me eat it right in front of those who would hurt me. You better not touch me, watch me. You better look. You do, and you know you'll be fighting with God. Well, he's my king, and he feels it. Never mind, I'm just sorry. It's a shepherd's paradise. It's kind of like gangster's paradise. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so even his mama thinks his mind is gone. He can't even live in his dog's old kennel anymore. He's in a worse place than a dog. He's living in a cave. And that's going to look real great on the headlines of the Jerusalem Post. You know, Caveman King, he wants your vote. Duck Dynasty's redneck owner is going to be your next president. No, he's alone in a cave and he's worse off than before because now he doesn't even have his sheep. He doesn't even have his sheep anymore. I named my sheep. I don't even have my sheep. I'm alone in a cave. God, what are you doing with me? But then an interesting thing happens. I want you to follow this. Chapter 22, verse 2. Everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented, somebody say discontented, gathered to him. This is really interesting, by the way. I don't got time to go into that. But so he became the captain over them, and there were about 400 men with him. Isn't it funny Have you ever noticed how discontent people seem to gather together? When somebody gets mad at me that doesn't know somebody else that gets mad at me, somehow they become best friends. 2010, the great split of 2010 when we instituted leadership standards, and everyone's like, I hate you, Mikey. I hate you. And then they didn't even know each other, but they became best friends, and they started like a club, like an anti-Mikey club. It's the funniest thing. It's like, really? You don't got something better to do with your life than that? Well, they gathered to him, and it seems that he has a great temptation here to give in to a lesser form of himself, to gather together and begin to grumble and gossip and complain about leadership. Saul stage a coup. He'd be right for doing it because he's the future king. To make plans to take his anointing by force, he could do it. He has this great temptation, but it doesn't say anything about that. Verse 6. I haven't got time to go into that. That's next week. Verse 6. Saul heard that David and the men were with him had been discovered. And Saul says in verse 8, all of you have conspired, all the people that are around him, he's like, you guys have conspired against me, and there is no one who reveals to me that my son has made a covenant, Jonathan has made a covenant with the son of Jesse. And then Doeg, someone, Doeg, freaking Doeg! Doeg stands up. Just, no, you know what, Doeg, just sit down. Doeg, shut up. Just shut up, Doeg. Somebody say, shut up, Doeg. Doeg stands up. He said, I saw the son of Jesse going to Nob, and they gave him the visions. They gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Oh, yeah. And so Saul sends for the priests of Nob, and they have them come back to the king. Verse 13. Then Saul said to them, why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, and that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me and lie in wait, as it is this day? And Ahimelech, the priest of Nob, is like, dude, among all your servants, David's the most faithful. He's your son-in-law. He does your bidding. He's an honorable man. He said he was doing your bidding. Why should I have questioned him? I didn't know anything about this. But Saul, being an evil man, he says, you shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house. And then the king said to the guards who stood with the guards are over here, and he says to them, turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand is with David. See, Saul just got jealous of David so much he wanted to kill David. And he says, kill these priests because they helped David, because their hand is also with David, and because they knew where he fled and did not tell me. But the priests, or the soldiers, they do something interesting. They just stand there, man. The servants of the king would not lift their hand against the priests of the Lord. They're like, no, I can't do that. I know you're the king. I can't do that. Listen, you don't talk about my mama, okay? You know, you don't date my grandma, okay? Right? Don't date my grandma, you know? You don't steal your girlfriend's, your friend's girlfriend. You don't do that. And like my old football coach used to say, you don't let them get your knees. You don't let them get your knees. They can spit on your mama. They can spit on your grandma's grave, but don't let them get your knees. There's just some things that you don't do, and one of the things that you don't do is kill priests. So you don't kill a priest. Verse 18. And then the king said to Doeg, gosh dang you, Doeg. The soldiers wouldn't even do it. They're commanded. And the king says to Doeg, you turn and kill the priest. So Doeg the Edomite turned and he struck the priest and killed them. 85 men who've done nothing wrong, priests of God, who wore linen ephod. Also Nob, the city of the priests, he went on and he struck that with the edge of the sword. Both men, women, children, nursing infants. That's like Eli, my baby. Yeah, Doeg! Come on! You feel this? You feel this yet? Man, I hate Doeg. He makes me mad. And nursing infants. He even killed the oxen, man, and the donkeys, the sheep. The sheep. You killed the sheep? What the sheep do to you, man? The sheep with the edge of the sword. So check this out. When no one else will do the despicable, Saul can always count on Doeg. Doeg doesn't have a soul. Doeg is that kind of person who's just looking for advancement. It doesn't matter how he gets there. Think about this. A Doeg is the kind of person that doesn't matter how he gets there. Like David, Doeg has vision. You know, it looks more like ambition with Doeg, though. Like David, Doeg even has courage to stand out and be different from everybody else and kill the priests. To take action, he has that. But what separates a Doeg from a David is character. We talked about that week too. Doeg only sees dollar signs. Doeg always has a price. Doeg will take any job if it pays well enough. Doeg will sacrifice principles on the altar of advancement. When you run into a Doeg, you're going to know it, and I'll tell you how you'll know it. Because you can do all kinds of nice things for them, but when it comes time for them to do something for you when you're in need, they're going to say, okay, that's going to cost you about $20. What? It's like, or you know, you've paid for them to have several meals, right? And then you go out to eat, and you're like, crap, where's mine? I don't have my stuff. And they're like, okay, but you get me 2 times. Like, what? That's a Doeg. You know, Doeg, come on. It's like, man, I bought you lunch 50 times. Now you're being a Doeg. There's always a price tag. There's always a ledger. There's always a score-keeping device of some kind to keep score of who's given what and to make sure that he doesn't end up on the bottom. And when they give, they want everybody to know about it. Oh, look at everything I gave. Doeg is a mercenary, a gun for hire. Somebody say I'm mercenary. Somebody say we're going somewhere. Then we come to chapter 23. We're covering a big section here of David's life, and it all comes together at a point. I'm going to show you how. Meanwhile, back with David in the wilderness, the Philistines attack a city called Keilah. And David finds out about it, and it says in 22 verse 2, therefore David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go and attack the Philistines? Because these are my people, and I don't want them to hurt. And the Lord said to David, go and attack the Philistines and save Keilah. So they go and they fight the Philistines, and God delivers them into the hands of David, and he frees the city. But, somebody said, but, Saul finds out that David is in Keilah, and he goes to siege the city. And God tells David, if you stay, the very people who you defended will turn on you and hand you over to Saul. The very people that you just helped and defended from the Philistines are going to turn on you and hand you over to Saul. Why? Because they're scared. I say they're scared. They're scared. They're scared. And because they're scared, they're willing to trade what is right for what is safe. They're willing to trade what is right for what is safe. And they would turn, wouldn't they? Keilayans? Keilaites? Somebody say Keilaites. They're the kind of people who don't want to get involved. They don't want to stand up for what's right when their life is on the line. They don't want to stand up for what's right when their popularity is on the line. They don't want to rock the boat. They want to stay neutral. I got this interesting picture of some people who decided to stay neutral. This picture was taken in 1935 in Germany. These are the bishops. These are the priests. This is what the Bible calls, priests, bishops, and stuff like that. These are the people that are supposed to be the protectors of righteousness and goodness and all that kind of stuff. Flip that picture. These are the men who are supposed to be standing up for truth, and these are the very men who lead a nation with their influence or spiritual influence into the hands of Hitler. These are Keilaites. Somebody said Keilaites. Now they might even drive you more crazy than a Doeg because they're more subtle than a Doeg. A Doeg will just go out and kill you. But a Keilaite will stay silent. It's what I call the silence of the land. So they like to stay neutral. Let's go to the next picture. Here's some of the bishops and the priests of Germany right next to Goebbels, the guy who was one of Hitler's right-hand man in propaganda. Let's go to the next picture. This guy right here, I might be butchering his name, but his name was Martin Niemöller, whatever. And he was a World War I boat commander, U-boat commander in 1917. That's him, 1917, just a young kid, and he's a U-boat captain. And this is what he had to say about the Nazis coming and taking people little by little away into concentration camps. He said, first they came for the communists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a communist. Let's go to the next picture. This is after he got out of the military. He's in Germany. No, he's in Britain. No, this is Germany. Yeah, sorry, this is Germany. Sorry, I get my guys mixed up. He's in Germany. He's a friend of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I don't know if you know him, but anyway, don't got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. And now he's in seminary. This is in 1920. he's a theology student who's studying to become, a minister. And meanwhile, for years the Nazis have already been taking people into, stuff. Okay, so they came for the trade they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Next picture. He's a pastor in Berlin, 1931 to 1937. Then they came for the Jews, but I didn't speak out because I was not a Jew. Next picture. Then they came for me, but there was no one left to speak. He was a prisoner, next picture, in Dachau. And that's him standing up. From 1937 to 1945, right when the war ended, he was free. Now, you look and you see that circle right there. What's that? It's a famous picture. The guy whose circle was just a kid at this time. It's Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel wrote the book called Night, and he was also a prisoner in Dachau. And this is what he said. Elie Wiesel said that I swore never to be silent when and whenever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must always take sides. Somebody say, we must always take sides. See, guys, you are under the influence of a crazy culture that says, oh, let's not rock the boat, let's be Kaliites, let's just let everything slide. But I'm telling you, and I'm a voice in the wilderness crying out saying, you must always take sides. Just like Elie Wiesel said, we must always take sides. Next, net neutrality helps the oppressor, not the victim. Think about it. When that boy molests that younger kid, and he says, keep quiet. Right? That silence doesn't help the kid. It helps the oppressor. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. To remain silent and indifferent is the greatest sin of all, he said. This comes from a guy who was stuck in Dachau and a prisoner of the concentration camps. He's like, you know what's worse than all the Nazis who put us in there was the people who were my people who didn't ever say a thing about it. Silence of the lambs. Proverbs, this is from your Bible, 24, verse 10. If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. Deliver those who are drawn toward death, and hold back the stumbling from their slaughter. If you say, surely we did not know about it, we didn't even know. Does not he who weighs the heart consider it? He who keeps your soul, does he not know it? And will he not render each man according to his deeds? Your silence speaks as loud as your words. Your neutrality, if you're a Kaliite, is just as loud as Doeg's wrath. So, see, Kaliites, they just want to make everyone happy. And you might be thinking, oh gosh, that's me. It's okay, because it's not the end of the story. They have this amazing ability to turn a blind eye to injustice. I can show them pictures. I can show a Kaliite pictures of aborted babies, and people say, oh, don't show me that. Don't look at this. Don't worry about that. We won't change the world by being political. We have to just love people like Jesus loved people. That's right, we do have to love people like Jesus loved people. And sometimes when there's an injustice in the society, then we got to turn over some tables like Jesus turned over some tables. Somebody say amen. We got to get in there and fight injustice, because just like this guy in Dachau, he didn't stand up until it was too late. And guys, there is blood of innocent on our hands if we do not stand up. I can show them that they say, oh, no, don't worry about that. You know, these people, they brush the pictures aside and they say, it's not about babies, it's about reproductive choice. We're just going to name it a procedure rather than murder. And we're going to talk about women's rights instead of other things. Kaliites have this amazing ability to turn a blind eye to injustice. Planned Parenthood receives 51% of its yearly income through abortions, and that would be 329,445 abortions. In fact, 40% of all reported abortions committed in the United States occur at Planned Parenthood clinics. The Democrats are really supporting that. I'm not going to say what I am, but the Republicans, Democrats support that. And I'm kind of against that. Making it by far one of the largest abortion providers in America. You have to look deep in their books to find this, but if you go and check it out on the ACLJ, you'll find it. Kaliites come in all shapes and sizes. They beg for you to help when they are in trouble, and when people slander their names and when the enemy is attacking, and when a stance needs to be made on their behalf, they're crying out for help. But when the tables turn, they turn on you, or just ignore it whenever you're under attack. I'll tell you somebody who's not a Kaleite, a good friend of mine named Brian Waterbury. Brian Waterbury and I were in high school together, and we were coming out from a dance one time, and there's these guys that were kind of punks, and they were jerks and everything like that, and we were just acting crazy. We're going to our car, and these guys are like, what are you, like in the band or something? Like being in the band is dumb, but I love the band. The band and the theater people, we get each other, right? Right? The band people were the friends of us theater freaks, and so we loved the band people. They were the coolest ones, because they didn't have to act all cool like the other people. Anyway, the dough eggs. and so we're going, and they're like, what are you in the band? I was like, I was stupid. I said, no, are you? And this guy takes me, and he rams me up against my car, throws me up against my car, and I'm like, okay, hold on, I'm a Christian, you know, and I'm thinking, if I swing at this guy, I could bring down everything I've built in 4 years of witness. I could take down with one punch. Everybody, I thought you were a Christian. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, am I going to get dog beat out of me, or what am I going to do? And I'm sitting there, and my friend was on the other side of the car, right? And the guy's like yelling at me. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. And it's taking everything within me to not punch this guy. But I don't want to ruin my witness. I'm like, dude, come on. You said it to me. I said it to you. Let's just call it even. Let's just say we're sorry. You know, he's like, he's getting ready to punch me. His friend comes up beside him. All of a sudden, my friend Brian Waterbury comes around the car, and he stands next to me. And he puts his arm around my shoulder. And the guy's like, what are you going to do about it? He said, I'm just going to stand right here next to my friend. Yes, Brian Waterbury, I freaking love you, man. The guy just backs off, and he goes away. And I looked at Brian Waterbury. I'm like, dude, you just like saved me from getting the dog beat out of me, because I wasn't going to punch back. And he's like, well, that's what friends do. See, a Brian Waterbury is not a doeg. A Brian Waterbury is not a Kaleite. He's somebody who will stand up when everybody else runs away. See, Kaleites are me monsters. Have you ever heard of the me monsters? Me! 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 You've heard this before, right? The me monster. You'll talk to them forever about their problems. And when they need your help, they don't have the time. Like, oh, yeah, by the way, I got to go. It's like, what? I just talked to you for an hour about your problem with your boyfriend. And then I tell you, hey, man, I'm feeling kind of down. Oh, I'm sorry. Just get over it. Jesus loves you. What? What is that? You're a freaking Kaleite? Somebody say Kaleite? See, doeg's like a doeg. Kaleite? What the? Kaleite? That's how you say Kaleite. Okay, so they're me monsters. They're more concerned with their status than what's right. They're afraid of standing out, looking radical. That's why Kaleites are all packed into a city, and they're not doeg standing alone. They're all a city of people. They really go along with society, as long as the mass, along with the masses. They like to blend in, and they don't mind if there's injustices in the world, as long as it doesn't affect their pocketbook or their economy. Loyalty is not in a Kaleite's vocabulary, because when a better offer comes along, they take it. They use positions as stepping stones. They use people as stepping stones. They even use God as a stepping stone, to mean to an end, to get what they want. Maybe from God they just want peace, and they don't ever give God the time of day, but they just want peace from God. And maybe they don't care about who God is, but they want to get to heaven one day. That's a Kaleite. Commitment is not in a Kaleite's vocabulary. They only put maybe on Facebook event statuses. That's you. Just look straight ahead. And this is why they only click maybe, and they'll never click yes, because if something more fun comes along that they don't want to be tied down to your little event, in case something more exciting comes along, they're only going to click maybe. So call me maybe. After all, is there a lot of people guilty of that? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call you a Kaleite. After all, a Kaleite will say a phrase like this. This is a horrible phrase, but it's a phrase that a Kaleite will say. So don't let me ever say this, because I would just call you a Kaleite. They say this phrase, well, I have to. You want to get me going, you just say what's best for me. Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to start scratching at the doors and foaming at the mouth like David did, because I don't understand a Kaleite. A Kaleite doesn't make sense to me. I can understand somebody wrestles with some sin issue or something like that, but I do not understand a Kaleite, and I do not understand a doeg. A mercenary. It's what we're talking about tonight. So this anointed future king of Israel, after risking his neck for them, must go out again into the wilderness and hide in caves and in the desert, surviving. But David didn't do it for them. I want you to hear that. David didn't do it for the Kaliites. He didn't do it for them. David did it because he listened to God. He was sensitive to God's spirit, and he was looking out he wasn't looking for man's praise. He was looking for God. He wasn't trying to understand why, after being promised all the things that he's been promised, that everything is going in the exact opposite direction, that he's starting to figure out, like, what is going on, God? You anointed me king, and now I'm hiding in a cave with a bunch of disgruntled people, and even the Kaliites have turned on me, and even my enemy won't hire me. And in a world of Doegs and Kaliites, we find David. And David he had character. He did it right. He did everything right. And David stood for the lowly sheep, and David stood up when everyone else sat down, and David was kept his heart pure through all of this. But now David faces a hard choice, guys. David faces a very difficult choice. Things aren't working out the way that they should, and he's spending a lot of time in the wilderness now, in the desert, and all he has is his thoughts to keep him company, and thoughts that might have been going through his head might have sounded like this: did God really call me? Did God really call me to be king? If he did, then why isn't this working out? Was Samuel just a crazy old guy? Or maybe just mad at Saul, and now I'm caught in the middle because Samuel's mad at Saul for not being a good king, so now I'm caught in the middle of all this stuff, you know? David is not the kind of guy who sits around and waits for something to happen. David, he's a man of action. Somebody say he's a man of action. He's a man trained for war, so hiding in a cave is the hardest thing for him. For David, hiding it does not compute. He's a warrior. He's not supposed to hide. He wants to go fight. He's hiding. Hiding is not in his nature. He probably feels like a coward. His pride is probably broken. And now he's sitting there going, God, what are you doing? And he faces the critical choice, guys. And am I going to keep following God when it doesn't make sense? Or am I going to try to take my calling? Am I going to try to take my destiny into my own hands and make something happen because God is really just moving a little bit too slow? After all, destiny needs action, right? DNA, destiny needs action, so I need to make something happen, right? But guys, sometimes the action that you're doing to get toward your destiny being shaped is waiting. Somebody say wait. In fact, if you look up the word wait, it's not a noun or an adjective, it's a verb. Those of you guys who aren't very well at English, don't do very well at English, a verb is an action. A verb is an action, Renee. And I heard it. Waiting, somebody say this with me, waiting is an action. So for David, hiding is a hard thing. Waiting on God is a hard thing, but waiting is an action. And he goes to use this gift of his calling for the enemy's purpose. He's trained in war. He wants to use what he's been trained for. He doesn't want it to go to waste. He can't sit still, and so he even offers his services to the enemy. His destiny, remember, was to be the godly king, to establish the throne of Israel, to establish the nation of Israel, to drive out the last of the giants, to finish what Joshua failed to do 300 years before. But he goes to the very city where the giants dwell. He wants to work with them, and after all, he's not getting any younger, and he's been trained for war. And if God's people aren't going to use my talents, then maybe someone else will, and maybe I'll just have to help God get me to my destiny because he's taken a little bit too long. He faces a critical point where he's going to have to decide as a young man whether he's going to be a mercenary or a martyr. A mercenary or a martyr. You know what I mean when I say mercenary, don't you? Webster says a mercenary is, one, someone working or acting merely for money or other reward. Two, someone hired to serve in a foreign army. You hire a mercenary to come fight your wars for you because they're trained professionals. Three, a professional soldier. Or number four, any hireling. Now that word doesn't have a very good connotation in the Bible. A hireling, according to the dictionary.com, is a person who works only for pay, especially in a menial or boring job, with little or no concern for the value of that work. Meaning they're just a hired hand, they're just a hired gun. Whoever will pay me more, that's where I will go. They're not driven by convictions, they're driven by their own selfish desires. A mercenary is someone who tries to get to his calling his own way, tries to take a shortcut to get to God's will. I'm going to say mercenary. See, contrary to popular belief, I don't think that most mercenaries, most Doegs, I don't think Doeg grew up saying to himself, I'm not going to stand for anything important. I'm just going to make myself awesome. I don't think that's where a mercenary is. I think it's sad. I think it threw me off. I was in 7th grade football, and man, I'm a Cowboy fan, you know what I mean? And my friend was a 49ers fan, you know? And Deion Sanders, I can't remember which way he went, but I think he started out in the 49ers. He came over to the Cowboys, and then he went to the Redskins or something like that. I can't remember, but it was like, really? Like, really? Like, I don't even care about you anymore because you're just a mercenary. You don't even believe in anything. Like, you don't fight for anything. You're just a job. You just want a job. You want people to worship you. That's all you are. Don't you think we're made to be more than that? In mercy? If you're heading to the NFL, fight for convictions. I don't know. I'm just throwing out an example. I see it all the time in seminary students. They start out with enough vision to change the world. But a professor or somebody talks them out of that vision and how the Bible can't really be real, blah, blah, blah. Or they start to see how hard the journey will be, and all of a sudden now they just start looking for jobs, ministry positions, fighting for a cause. And I see it when they use youth ministry and college ministry as stepping stones to get somewhere else. I don't get it. I've had people try to hire me hundreds of times, pay me twice, 3 times as much money as I make here. I'm not leaving this place. Not yet. It's not my time. No. Not until God's done with me, because I don't understand a mercenary. I went to a church one time recently, kind of nearby, and you know, huge production and all that kind of stuff. Go backstage, talk to these guys. I noticed something about these guys. These guys didn't have a fire, you know? They were working, they were doing a job. And just do this thing for Jesus. As soon as 5 o'clock rolls around, I'm out. I am walking out. What is that? Can I tell you something, guys? One of the biggest decisions that you will have to make, maybe besides courage and vision and character, all those things we talked about in the past, are you going to be a person? Or are you going to be a martyr? Are you going to just give your services and then time clock? See, apparently I get paid, but I don't know. It goes into an account somewhere, and Carrie pays all the bills online, and so I just work for God. You know what I'm saying? I know I get paid, but I don't like pay attention to getting paid. I hope that you don't either. I hope that you don't fight for money. I hope that you're not a Kaleite or a Doeg just trying to get forward in life and try to use your resume to get somewhere. Come on. But that you find a cause worth dying for, a cause worth fighting for, and you give your heart and your life to that, and you don't give up when things get tough. Sorry, I got the heart of David. I can't be a Doeg. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I can't understand you if you are, because I don't believe that you are. See, a Doeg just lost heart along the way. I see it in people who picked up an instrument to worship God. Somewhere along the line, it became more about the technical aspects of how it sounded than hearts cry out to God. I understand that, because I play guitar. But you become a mercenary. I want you to hear me, guys. You become a mercenary when you can't focus on God because you're too busy hearing the flaws in the sound system. You become a Doeg. A mercenary, someone working for hire when you're doing it for this instead of for this. Amen? I picked up the guitar because I was in Sally's youth group, and we had to listen to like Delirious on repeat because we'd just be going to the song and then we had to push the button, go back, and then we started all over. And I was like, man, God, I just want to worship. And so I picked up the guitar, and it sounded horrible, but the presence of God would come and flood down in that place. And it got better and better, as the as I got away from the flaws. But I remember one day I'm worshiping, I'm starting to sound pretty good, and I'm worshiping God, and I'm fasting through lunch, and we're in the basement of our youth group where Sally's youth group was, and I'm praying, and all of a sudden God is nowhere to be found. God is gone, like his Ichabod. There's no presence of the Lord anywhere in that basement. I'm like, what is going on, God? Because it's becoming about you, Mike, and how awesome you are. And I picked up my guitar and I was like, God, if this ever becomes about me, I give you my word. I'm going to put this guitar across the room. I'm going to break it to smithereens. I'm not going to let this become about me. That was a big moment in my life. I remember that day. And every time I come close, I edge close to Doeg. I say, okay, I'm going to bust this guitar. I'm going to straight up drop kick it. Because I am not going to let this become about me. I am not going to become a mercenary. I see it all the time with cell leaders who used to believe every cell session mattered and changed the life of one world, changed the world one life at a time. And somewhere along the way, they lost heart in it. They just started doing it because they just had to do it. It seemed like it didn't matter anymore. I guess it's a world I don't understand because I'm not a mercenary. I don't understand the Merc mindset. It's so empty because it's all about me. I'd much rather be about God than me. Thank God somebody recognized David when he was in Gath. See, if he would have gone if he would have gone, slipped under the radar, he might have kept going. And if he would have kept going, he probably would have ended up being a goat, using his talents for the devil instead of for God. Or for himself, which is for the devil. Okay. That is the road that leads to Doeg. David escapes with his life. He eats some humble pie, and he has to act crazy and drool on his beard, and he runs for his life. But David learned something that day. He learned that he can't get to God's destiny for his life on his terms. He learned that it would be better to hide in a cave than to use his energies for the enemy. He is the one who wrote the Psalm 84, that says, "For a day in your courts is better than 1,000 anywhere else. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of wickedness with fame." David made a choice that every one of you will have to make in your life. Are you going to be a Merc, or are you going to be a martyr? A martyr's definition is this: a person who willingly suffers death rather than to renounce his or her beliefs. A person who is put to death or endures great suffering on behalf of a belief or just a principle or a cause. One who bears witness of the truth and suffers death in the case cause of Christ. Worship team. I'm going to read you a story from Jesus first. I'll tell you about what this is really about. You got to decide tonight. Are you going to be a Merc or are you going to be a martyr? 16-year-old in Asia, 1970. The communist soldiers had discovered their illegal Bible study. As the pastor was reading from the Bible, men with guns suddenly broke into the home, terrorizing the believers who were gathered to worship. They shouted insults and threatened to kill the Christians. The leading officer pointed his gun at the pastor. At the pastor's head. "Hand me your Bible," he demanded. Reluctantly, the pastor handed him over his Bible as his prized possession. With a sneer on his face, the guard threw the Bible on the floor. He glared at the small congregation. "We will let you go," he growled. "But first you must spit on this book of lies. Anyone who refuses will be shot." The believers had no choice but to obey the officer's order. The soldier pointed his gun at one of the men. "You first." The man slowly got up and knelt down by the Bible. Reluctantly, he spat on it, praying, "Father, please forgive me." He stood up and walked out the door. The soldier stood back and allowed him to leave. "Okay, you," the soldier said, nudging the woman forward. In tears, she could barely do what he demanded. She spat just a little, but it was enough. She too was allowed to leave quietly, a young girl. Overcome with the love of her Lord, she knelt down and she picked up the Bible. She wiped off the spit with her dress. "What they have done to your word, please forgive them," she prayed. The communist soldier put his pistol to her head and he pulled the trigger. You see the conflict. On the road to your destiny, you will have to make several choices. Will I embrace the vision that God has for my life, or will I try to make my own? Will I choose to be a Christian of character, or will I lose the battle in the dark? Will I choose to walk through fear on the path to courage? That was me. Will I be a Merc, or will I be a Martyr? Paul said this. First in 2 Timothy 4. He says, "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires, because they have itching ears, they're going to heap upon themselves teachers that will just tell them whatever they want to hear. And they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables. But you will be watchful in these things, Timothy. Endure afflictions. Do the work of evangelist. Fulfill your ministry. And this is what he said. Check this out. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure is over. He said, I'm being poured out as a drink offering. My life is an offering to God. I'm pouring it out to God. And guys, I'm not saying you need to throw your life, your stone, at just any cause. I want you to take time. I want you to load that stone in your sling. I want you to aim it. I want you to count the cost. And when the time is right, I want you to launch yourself into that cause. And don't look back. Don't look back once you've launched. Don't ask if they're paying you enough. Don't use stepping stones. Pour your life out on your cause like a drink offering. Let him squeeze you. God, let him squeeze every drop out of you like a sponge. Don't let him let any be left for yourself. So that when you look back, you can say like Paul did one verse later, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And finally, there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day. Father God, my prayer for this generation is that they would resist the urge to be a mercenary. They wouldn't use their talents for themselves or for the enemy, for gaff. That they wouldn't be a Doeg. They wouldn't be a Kaleite that just stands idly by when evil proceeds. They'll stand up and they'll stand up for their cause, whatever cause that may be. And they will be poured out like a drink offering. And they'll say, God, use me to the uttermost. Don't let there be one drop left over. I don't want one color unused. Fulfill your destiny.